Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Breathe deep. Imagine your legs more limber in Duluth Trading Double Flex Denim. Envision euphorically squatting for that can of suds. Bending for your toolbox in a state of bliss. Lunging for your laser level on a whole new level. Relax and allow the flex to fill you with ability. Find your inner flex in Double Flex Denim only at Duluth Trading.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me. Good morning. It is Monday, September 15th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Mix of sun and clouds today. The high going to be 79. Tonight and overnight, partly cloudy, low 65, and then Tuesday, partly cloudy, high 77. If you are walking out the door with us right now, 60 clear in Southampton out on Long Island, 64 and clear in Harrison over in New Jersey, and it's 63 and clear right outside our Midtown studios.
The top 5 at 5.
Governor Hochul finally makes a mayoral endorsement. Will the MTA and LIRR workers get a contract done by strike day Thursday? Plans being made for Charlie Kirk's public memorial. A new study, not good news for those of us who do not get enough shut-eye. And one New Jersey beach town earns a distinction it definitely doesn't want. All right, let's get into it at 5:01. The New York Times putting out an editorial this morning from Governor Hochul where she endorses Zohran Mamdani's bid for mayor. An establishment seal of approval for the 33-year-old Democratic Socialist. Apparently, they've been working on this for a while. In this Times piece that was released last night into this morning, the governor says in the past few months, she's had frank conversations with him, meaning Mamdani. We've had our disagreements, she wrote in the op-ed. But in our conversations, she said, I heard a leader who shares my commitment to a New York where children can grow up safe in their neighborhoods, where opportunities within reach. And then she goes on to say, I heard a leader who's focused on making New York City affordable. Of course, this has been the centerpiece of his platform as he runs for mayor. So she says, I enthusiastically support him. So now, of course, the question is, what does that mean for the governor herself, who's going to be running next year for re-election? Political consultant Hank Scheinkoff weighs in on the endorsement.
This is a very politically risky maneuver for someone who's running for re-election next year and needs to win New York City suburbs, which will not like Mamdani no matter what he does.
Now, Hochul, you could call her a moderate Democrat, I think that's fair, who's running for a second full term, has been under pressure from the party's left wing to make this endorsement. And apparently the two, Mamdani and the governor, have been speaking off and on, and especially after that shocking primary win back in June. So he got that endorsement. Now the question is, will it hurt Hochul as she runs for re-election next year?
Let's see if she goes in the street and campaigns with Mamdani, and let's see what voters, particularly the ethnic groups that he's had the most problems with, particularly voters over 45, who are more likely to turn out, what they think about it in the weeks to come.
All right, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, neither of them have endorsed Mamdani yet. Election day, of course, getting closer. I think we're 50 days away? 49 days away. We're awfully close is what it is. So all the candidates who are running for mayor were out over the weekend. You had Mayor Adams speaking at a health and wellness event for the Indian community in Queens yesterday morning. He was talking about the fact that there's been all this talk about him dropping out of the race for mayor. And he says that we in the media have a bias against him.
The way I am being covered is just bias. It's bias reporting. I'm going to stay focused. I am at peace with whatever the people of this city determine.
Now, what we had heard from the campaign going into the weekend was the mayor was going to look at internal polling and then make a decision about his way forwards. Over on Mamdani, he was canvassing in Jackson Heights over the weekend. That was before he learned he was going to get that endorsement from the governor. And then you had Andrew Cuomo, now the independent. He was in a church on Sunday morning.
The city's in trouble. We lost 1.5 million people since COVID. And part of it is just too expensive to live here.
Now, some would argue that that exodus out of New York happened under Cuomo's watch. Meanwhile, in Brooklyn, we found Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa, where he opened a new Brooklyn office for his campaign as he fights to narrow the gap between him and first place Mamdani.
It's crime and public safety. They associate me with that. Affordability, cost of living is very high. Everything can't be free, and everything shouldn't be to the advantage of the billionaires. I think I represent that because I'm a populist and a blue-collar working class candidate.
Now, coming up at 5:30, maybe you heard this going into the weekend, President Trump sat down for what was a pretty long interview on the couch on Fox News, and he went after Curtis Sliwa. We're going to hear Curtis's response to that, and if you missed that, you'll hear what President Trump had to say. That's coming up at 5:30. 5:05, a 16-year-old girl killed in Queens over the weekend after she was intentionally hit by a car.
It was around 4 o'clock in the morning Saturday along Roosevelt Avenue when a 16-year-old girl was killed following an argument of some kind. A 38-year-old man allegedly got behind the wheel of his SUV, drove up on the curb, and purposefully rammed into the 16-year-old girl, later identified as Yoani Gomez Alvarez. Her 32-year-old mom also injured but stable. And these people saw it all happen. They spoke to Eyewitness News.
It sounded like a big crush, like something hit something, a big noise. And then I came out the building, I looked, and I saw the accident. That was it. People have to, have more tolerance.
The driver charged with murder as well as DWI. James Flippin for 77 WABC News.
A man was injured after being hit by a car while standing on a curb in Brooklyn. The person behind the wheel of that car, a 15-year-old, too young to drive legally. The crash happened the corner of Pennsylvania and Hegman Avenues in East New York. This was about 10 o'clock yesterday morning. Now, thankfully, the person hit is going to be okay. But video shows this black Honda Accord going the wrong way, then going airborne, slamming into a utility pole so quickly that the victim had no chance to move. There was a lot of eyewitnesses.
Yeah, from time to time I see people speeding. That's a solid impact. If you survive, you're more than lucky, because something like that breaks your bones.
Now, lucky for this person who is in the hospital, the pole seemed to absorb a lot of the impact of this crash. The teen driver, he got out of the car and just started running, but police were able to chase him down and bring him into custody.
It was two guys standing there. One of them got hit, and one of them was lucky, he moved back, and that was I thank God that the other person that got hit is alive right now.
Yeah, so the 71-year-old who was taken to the hospital, we're told this morning, the good news is he's in stable condition. WABC News Time 5:08. Let's go out to Queens, where a person of interest is in police custody after a man was stabbed Saturday night in his home.
The victim is identified as 76-year-old John Morocco, who lived at the home on 102nd Street in Howard Beach. CBS 2 reports police responding to a 911 call shortly before midnight Saturday found Morocco with a stab wound to the chest. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Neighbors say the stabbing appears to have resulted from a family dispute, but police have said nothing about the circumstances. I'm Larry Kofsky, NBC News Radio.
From Queens, let's go to nearby Long Island. Less than, I guess 3 days, if it's Thursday, or is that considered 4 days? Well, anyway, in 3 or 4 days, there could be an LIRR strike if no agreement is reached between the labor unions and the MTA, which would, of course, leave riders with major disruptions. I mean, no way train-wise to get to work. There would only be buses that would go from certain stations on the LIRR to subway stations in Queens. So the unions, the MTA, Governor Hochul could request the creation of what's called a presidential emergency board that would delay any strike for several months while negotiations continue under a federal mediation. But so far, nobody's called for that. At least as of the weekend. So that could change, maybe today. But what's going on here is there's the engineers want a 16% raise over 3 months, and the MTA is offering them 9.5%. Meanwhile, riders just want to know whether they're going to have their ride or not come Thursday.
I hope it doesn't actually come to a strike. Like, people use the train constantly.
Everyone deserves a fair living wage that matches inflation.
So the presidential, there's somebody who's on the side of the engineers. The Presidential Emergency Board must be convened by the White House. So again, we're waiting to see if that happens as riders wait again to see if there's going to be a strike.
Basically no parking in Queens, so it's going to be a very big problem. I wouldn't get in because I don't have a car.
Yeah, so everybody trying to make plans. What the MTA is doing is they're asking people just to work from home if they can. But, of course, a lot of people got to be in the office. That taking place as we're getting even more information on this new report that shows the MTA is hemorrhaging money because of constant fare and toll evasion.
Andrew Rain with the Citizens Budget Commission says the report shows the MTA lost out on roughly $1 billion last year.
People need to focus on this because it is not fair that most of us pay, but we're paying more because other people aren't.
According to the group, every minute during 2024, 330 subway fares and 710 bus fares were evaded. The report made several suggestions, one of which includes the MTA continue its current efforts to stop fare evasion. Lisa G., 77 WABC News.
512. Let's go out to Utah and the latest on the Charlie Kirk assassination. The governor of Utah saying the assassin, the alleged assassin, the suspect is deeply indoctrinated with leftist ideology. You had Republican Spencer Cox says they've learned that through interviews involving Tyler Robinson's family and friends.
It is important, again, to understand how someone gets radicalized like this. Mm-hmm. And in this case, it happened as much as people wish it wasn't or don't want it to be this. These are the facts.
Now, Cox confirmed the 22-year-old Robinson's live-in romantic partner is a male transitioning to become a female who is cooperating with police. Cox says investigators are working to try and determine Robinson's motive for murdering Kirk, the conservative activist who was killed by that single gunshot while speaking during a college event in Utah on Wednesday.
The roommate was a romantic partner, a male transitioning to female. I can say that he has been very cooperative. This partner, we're interviewing all kinds of people, everyone that knows him, and trying to learn more about what that motive actually was. This is a direct assault on America. A direct assault on every single one of us. Of course, it's an assault on Charlie, and we love Erica and her kids and his family. But this is us.
Meanwhile, the governor of Utah going to seek the death penalty for Charlie Kirk's suspected assassin. This is more from Spencer Cox.
We believe very strongly that the victims need to play a role in these conversations. In the days that come, the prosecutor will be having conversations with Charlie's family.
And maybe it over the weekend, really emotional. The widow of Charlie Kirk making her first public comment since her husband's killing in a public speech, which was amazing to watch considering just days earlier her husband had been assassinated.
Now and for all eternity, he will stand at his Savior's side, wearing the glorious crown of a martyr.
Erica Kirk said her husband Charlie loved President Trump and that their friendship was amazing. She held back tears. She says her husband would want to be remembered for his courage and his faith.
Mr. President, my husband loved you. And he knew that you loved him too. Your friendship was amazing. You supported him so well, as did he for you. Charlie always said that when he was gone, he wanted to be remembered for his courage and for his faith. Charlie loved his children, and he loved me with all of his heart.
It was hard to watch. Coming up, we're going to give you the latest we know about the memorial that's going to take place in Arizona on Sunday. And then we're going to hear from some members of Congress who say they fear for their own lives in the aftermath of that assassination. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, 5:15, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Good morning, Justin Ellick.
Good morning to you, Noam Layden. Start here with a recap of your football week 2 yesterday for our local squads out in Dallas. Brendan Aubrey kicked a 46-yard field goal. This time expired in overtime after tying a 64-yarder to end regulation, and the Cowboys beat the Giants 40-37 to cap a thrilling back and forth. The Cowboys extended the winning streak against their NFC East rival to 9 games, the longest active streak in the NFL among division opponents. And Prescott beat the Giants for the 14th consecutive time, losing both starts against them as a rookie in 2016. Overtime was on the verge of going scoreless after the teams combined for 5 consecutive go-ahead TDs in the final 12 minutes of the fourth quarter, including a scoring toss apiece from Prescott and Wilson in the final minute. And then quarterback Russ made his only big mistake on a big day, 450 yards passing, too shy of his career high, and 3 touchdowns, throwing an ill-advised deep ball with pressure when New York just needed a field goal to win, leading to Donovan Wilson interception, I should say, at the Dallas 30 with 2 minutes left in OT. Rookie Cam Scatterbo's first career TD on a 1-yard plunge put the Giants up 23-20 early in the fourth, and wideout Malik Neighbors finished 4 yards short of his career high with 167 yards on 9 catches with 2 TDs. Up next for the Giants, their home opener come next Sunday against the 0-2 Kansas City Chiefs. At MetLife, the Jets got worked by the visiting Buffalo Bills, losing 30-10 to fall to 0-2 on the young season. Justin Fields and the Jets offense was shut down from the start by Buffalo D that did yield 40 points last week against Baltimore. Fields, coming off a promising Jets debut in the opener, struggled to move the ball before leaving in the fourth quarter with a concussion. Tyrod Taylor replaced Fields with just over 12 minutes remaining. Fields was only 3 of 11 passing for 27 yards and had 49 yards rushing on 5 carries before Taylor got New York into the end zone for the only time when he tossed a 5-yard touchdown pass to Jeremy Ruckert with just about 3.5 minutes left. The Jets finished with 154 total yards, the fewest allowed by the Bills in a road game since giving up 127 at Indianapolis in 1990. Coming up next for the Jets, they'll travel to Tampa Bay to face the Buccaneers come next Sunday. And looking ahead to tonight, Monday Night Football, it's a doubleheader here early on in the season. We get some of these doubleheaders on Monday night. A 7 p.m. kickoff between the aforementioned Bucs out in Houston against the Texans. Texans are 0-1. Bucs right now are 1-0. And the Texans, they're 2.5-point home favorites. And at 10 p.m. tonight, out west, the Chargers are in Vegas against the Raiders. Both teams there 1-0. Chargers 3.5-point road favorites against the Raiders. And to the diamond here out in Queens, Pete Alonso hit a 3-1 walk-off homer off Luis Cervello, and the Mets stopped an 8-game losing streak with a 5-2 win over the Texas Rangers. New York, which reopened a 1.5-game lead over San Francisco for the last NL wildcard, backed rookie Nola McLean with a 2-0 lead before Alonso played the hero with an opposite field homer to right in the 10th. Up next for the Mets, an off day today before welcoming in the San Diego Padres for a 3-game series starting tomorrow night. And in the Bronx, the Yankees were unable to complete a series sweep of the Red Sox, falling 6-4 in yesterday's finale in Boston. Boston moved within 1.5 games behind New York for the AL's top wild card. Second place, Yankees dropped 4 games behind AL East, leading Toronto. And up next for the Yanks, callers for dawn will get to start in tonight's opener of a 3-game series against the Twins. First pitch from Minnesota is scheduled for 7:40. That is your Sports Noam, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:20. Some in Congress fearful after the Charlie Kirk assassination. Arizona Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari says some of her fellow lawmakers have been talking security.
And we are very, very scared. Look, I think all of us know that there is a risk coming into public service, but you should not have to risk your life.
Ansari says more money has been allocated to House members for the security, but she says not enough.
People should be able to speak freely, have different views, and vehemently disagree about those views, but that should not result in violence. People would be surprised to know how minimal the budget is for this. dangerous and how minimal security any of us have.
Well, she'll be happy to hear then that the White House asking Congress for $58 million now to boost security for the executive and judicial branches.
CBS News reports the funds will go to the U.S. Marshal Service and be used to protect Supreme Court justices. The proposal comes after conservative activist Charlie Kirk's assassination on Wednesday. U.S. Capitol Police say the department expects over 14,000 threats against lawmakers by year's end. I'm Jim Forbes.
That's just crazy. And House Speaker Mike Johnson calling on lawmakers to turn down the rhetoric following the Charlie Kirk assassination. He was on Fox News yesterday. He says his colleagues have an obligation to set a different tone in political conversations.
You can't call the other side fascists and enemies of the state and not understand that there are some deranged people in our society who will take that as cues to act and do crazy and dangerous things.
He also said, though, that the shooting should not stop public discourse.
We cannot shrink back from advancing that truth and advancing our ideas in the public square. We should double down.
And a New Jersey nurse is filing a lawsuit against a doctor and the hospital, claiming she was suspended without pay after criticizing a doctor for his alleged remarks about Charlie Kirk.
Lexi Coenzel is a nurse at Englewood Health, and she's suing that hospital as well as Dr. Matthew Jung. Others also named in the lawsuit. The New York Post reports that Coenzel says when the news broke of Charlie Kirk's death, Dr. Chung said, "I hate Charlie Kirk. He had it coming. He deserved it." Coenzel says that Jung made those remarks in front of 8 other nurses and a patient. She reported the incident immediately and did later post about it on Instagram. Coenzel suspended without pay, and supposedly she was told by her union to look for another job. James Flippin for 77 WABC News.
WABC News Time 523. Another top official in the Biden administration criticizing the former president. It was former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who was on NBC's Meet the Press yesterday. He said Biden should have not run for re-election.
If he had made that decision sooner, we might have been better off. But it literally was his decision. Nobody else was able to make that decision.
Buttigieg responding to that excerpt from former Vice President Kamala Harris's upcoming book, where she called Biden's decision to seek re-election reckless.
I'm not alone in believing that he should have made the decision not to run sooner. But look, we are where we are as a country and as a party right now.
Buttigieg insisting he was never part of the process of deciding whether Biden should run again for another 4 years. 524, a powerful House Republican going to call it quits. Texas Congressman Mike McCall says he will not seek re-election next year.
It's been an honor to serve for over 2 decades in the Congress. I'm looking now for a new challenge.
His decision comes after Texas Republican Morgan Luttrell and Republican Don Bacon of Nebraska. They also announced their retirement from public office this year.
I want to continue to serve the people of this country in national security and foreign policy and do what I've done the last 2 decades, make America stronger and the world safer.
McCall has represented Texas's 10th congressional district. It goes back to 2005. The Trump administration planning to resume federal funding now for research at Harvard University.
According to multiple reports, the White House says it will restore the funds after a judge's ruling that a sweeping blockade of funds was illegal. However, the administration has said it would appeal the judge's decision and maintain its pressure campaign against the university. It's unclear how widespread the restorations were or when the government's payments to Harvard would begin. I'm Lisa Carton.
525, let's go overseas. The UN condemning a massacre in Haiti that killed 40 in a small fishing village that's north of Port-au-Prince.
Local news reports say the attack by armed gangs happened Thursday night after the gang's leader was killed. The UN said in a statement that the Secretary General is, quote, alarmed by the levels of violence rocking Haiti and urges Haitian authorities to ensure the perpetrators are, quote, brought to justice. The U.S. State Department says the gang leader was the head of a gang alliance, and this is one of the primary causes of instability and violence in Haiti. I'm Jim Forbes.
U.S. firms pledging to invest about $1.5 billion in the U.K. ahead of President Trump's visit this week.
The President and First Lady, Melania Trump, will arrive in London on Tuesday for a 3-day official state visit. Ahead of the trip, the British government has announced private investments worth over $1.5 billion in the UK's financial services sector. The investments are expected to create about 1,800 jobs in London, Edinburgh, Belfast, and Manchester. U.S. firms making the investments include Bank of America, PayPal, and S&P Global. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
Let's stay overseas. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he was in Israel over the weekend to discuss the war in Gaza. The State Department says Rubio was there to reaffirm President Trump's commitment to Israel's security and convey America's priorities in the Israel-Hamas conflict.
How do you provide security? How do you make sure Hamas or anything like it never comes back again? That's the president's priority. That's always been his priority. And that's what we're going to try to move forward on.
Now, Rubio's visit comes days after Israel launched those strikes against Hamas leaders inside Qatar, a U.S. ally. President Trump, he had dinner with the Prime Minister of Qatar on Friday night and has said that he's very unhappy about the strikes. Rubio there to talk about that in the Israel-Hamas war.
And part of what we're going to have to discuss as part of this visit is how the events of last week with Qatar impact that.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noah Layden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noah
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me. Good morning. It is Monday, September 15th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds today. The high going to be 79. Tonight and overnight, partly cloudy, low 65, and then Tuesday, kind of the same weather, partly cloudy, high 77. If you're walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are, 60 and clear in Southampton, out on Long Island, 64 and clear in Harrison over in New Jersey, and it's 64 and clear right outside our Midtown studios. WABC News Time 5:39. Governor Hochul endorsing Zohran Mamdani in the race for mayor in an op-ed that was released by the New York Times last night.
Hochul making that announcement in an op-ed with the New York Times. The governor says Mamdani is committed to a safer and more affordable New York City. Hochul says she made it clear to him that the NYPD needs strong leadership and needs every resource to keep streets safe. Hochul says ultimately she needed to know the next mayor would not surrender 1 inch to President Trump. In a statement, Mamdani says he is grateful for the governor's endorsement and looks forward to working with her.
Meanwhile, out on the campaign trail, Andrew Cuomo had additional questions for Zohran Mamdani as the Democratic Socialist, he says, apologizes for calling the NYPD racist back in 2020.
He finally apologized for calling the NYPD racist. New Yorkers have to chase him down and force him to tell them what his positions are.
Cuomo releasing a list of questions asking Mamdani if he also apologizes for calling the NYPD anti-queer and a major threat to public safety. Mamdani shooting back with a statement over the weekend saying Cuomo has spent his campaign lying to voters about his ability to fix the problems that he created. Then you had the young Republicans. They were out holding a vigil over the weekend in Madison Square Park for Charlie Kirk. Curtis Sliwa, he was in attendance, and he says this vigil was meant to send a message.
We don't want anybody to be hurt in the process of espousing their views. That's what America is known for. But there have been spurts of violence in our history, and that's why it's very important that people come together at this moment. This issue of Charlie Kirk being assassinated should send shockwaves through our country, which is best known for free speech and democracy. And what he was doing, going from campus and campus, and not just using his bully pulpit, but having debates.
And once that vigil was over, the Republican nominee going back hard against Zohran Mamdani, saying he's focusing too heavily on national issues that concern his younger voter base.
He wants to run against Donald Trump. He wants to talk about the Palestinian cause. Anything to distract, because on the local issues, especially crime and public safety, he's extraordinarily weak. That's his Achilles heel.
Now, over the weekend, the Republican, I should say, independent nominee saying that he opened up several campaign headquarters across the 5 boroughs.
I've opened them up in Brownsville, Brooklyn. No Republican ever had Brownsville, Brooklyn, Howard Beach, Bay Ridge, Bronx. I don't see Cuomo opening up any headquarters. In the case of Eric Adams, his campaign has collapse.
Now, when we left you for the weekend, the President Trump, was on the couch with Fox and Friends giving what was a pretty long interview. He was the one that initially told us that the suspect, the gunman that shot Charlie Kirk on Wednesday, had been brought into custody. But then he wanted to weigh in on the mayoral campaign. And he really went hard against Curtis Sliwa. Here's what he had to say.
Well, I think they have to have one candidate.
say.
And it would look to me like Cuomo, frankly, is leading the other two. And look, I'm a Republican, but Curtis is not exactly primetime, He wants cats to be in Gracie Mansion. He wants to open it up as a kid. That's the home, for those that don't know.
He's a good crime fighter.
The magnificent home of the mayor. It's beautiful. Gracie Mansion, to me, is like a fabled place. If you're in New York, we don't need to have thousands of cats.
Now, Curtis's campaign made comment right after this was over. They said New Yorkers care for people and for animals, and so does Curtis Sliwa. And he went on to say that he's proud of his wife, Nancy, who's devoted her life to fostering, caring for, and saving animals and fighting for them when no one else would. Here was more from Curtis yesterday.
It's crime and public safety. They associate me with that. Affordability, cost of living is very high. Everything can't be free, and everything shouldn't be to the advantage of the billionaires. I think I represent that because I'm a populist and a blue-collar working-class candidate.
Yeah, now still the polls, all of them so far, have shown Zohran Mamdani with a commanding lead in this race for mayor. 5:44. Let's go out to Howard Beach, Queens. A son accused of stabbing his father to death late Saturday night inside their home in Howard Beach. Cops identifying the victim, 76-year-old John Morocco, who lived at a home on 102nd Street. Officers responding to a 911 call. This was midnight Saturday, where they found him with stab wounds to his chest. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The victim's son, 25-year-old Carl, arrested yesterday morning, charged with murder and criminal possession of a weapon. Now, neighbors who know the family, they've only been on the block maybe a year or so, but surprised. They said everybody seemed to be friendly over there.
The son stabbed the father in the heart, and it happened in the basement of the house. The mother and the younger son came out, and they were there with the police for 3 hours.
I said, what happened? He goes, my brother killed my father.
Yeah, so neighbors say the Morocco family, John Morocco, his wife, and their 2 adult sons moved into this house about a year ago. The neighbors say Carl, the older son, lived in the basement of this home.
I pray for their family, their loved ones. He was really nice person. Every time he saw me, he waved.
Yeah, so investigators were still outside the home late yesterday, and they had the area blocked off with crime scene tape. The motive, so far, that remains unclear. In a moment, we'll give you the latest on what we know on the possibility of an LIRR strike come Thursday. But first, 5:45, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk, where the Giants, they almost pulled it off yesterday, but no.
Yeah, they almost did. I mean, my biggest concern there, Noam Layden, was I'm watching the game on Channel 5 and Fox, obviously. And the Eagles and the Chiefs were on right after, and I was thrown into a bit of a predicament because my game got preempted because of the Giants and the Cowboys.
You don't have Red Zone or NFL Ticket?
I have Sunday Ticket, but I'm just complaining for the sake of complaining.
Oh, okay.
Is that not allowed?
So you could have turned on Sunday Ticket and watched the game.
Well, it cost me about 5 seconds of watching the beginning of the...
The truth is, it was a great game, so you didn't really want to turn away from it.
No, you didn't, but at the same time, you had a Super Bowl rematch to tune into. Come on now.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, okay.
But that's not why we're here. We'll talk about this Giants-Cowboys game. It really was a barn burner. Brandon Aubrey kicked a 46-yard field goal. This time expired in overtime after tying the game with a 64-yarder to end regulation. And the Cowboys did beat the Giants 40-37 to cap a thrilling back and forth. Cowboys extended the winning streak against their NFC East rival to 9 games, the longest active streak in the NFL among division opponents. And Prescott beat the Giants for the 14th consecutive time since losing both of his starts against them as a rookie in 2016. Overtime was on the verge of going scoreless after the teams combined for 5 consecutive go-ahead TDs in the final 12 minutes of the fourth quarter, including scoring toss apiece, I should say, from Prescott and Wilson in the final minute. And then quarterback Russ made his only big mistake on a huge day, 450 yards passing, 2 shy of his career high, and 3 touchdowns. He threw an ill-advised deep ball with pressure when New York just needed a field goal to win, leading to a Donovan Wilson interception at the Dallas 30 with 2 minutes left in OT. Rookie Cam Scatterbo, his first career TD, had on a 1-year plunge, put the Giants up 23-20 early in the fourth, and wideout Malik Neighbors finished 4 yards short of his career high with 167 yards on 9 catches with 2 TDs. Up next for the Giants, their home opener come next Sunday against the aforementioned and 0-2 now Kansas City Chiefs at MetLife. The Jets got worked by the visiting Buffalo Bills, losing 30-10 to fall to 0-2 on the young season themselves. Justin Fields and the Jets offense was shut down from the start by Buffalo D that yielded 40 points last week against Baltimore. Fields, coming off a promising Jets debut in the opener, struggled to move the ball before leaving in the fourth quarter with a concussion. Tyrod Taylor replaced him with just over 12 minutes remaining. Fields was only 3 of 11 passing for 27 yards and had 49 yards rushing on 5 carries before Taylor got New York into the end zone for the only time when he tossed a 5-yard TD pass to Jeremy Ruckert with 3.5 minutes remaining. The Jets finished with 154 total yards, the fewest allowed by the Bills in a road game since giving up 127 at Indianapolis in 1990. Coming up next for the Jets, they'll travel to Tampa Bay to face the Buccaneers come Sunday. Speaking of those Bucs, they are one of 2 installments of Monday Night Football tonight. They're out in Houston against the Texans. That's a 7 p.m. kickoff. Houston there, 2.5-point home favorites. And at 10 p.m. thereafter, the Chargers and the Raiders will get going out west. Both those squads 1-0 on the young season. The Chargers there, 3.5-point road favor, 3.5-point road favorites for the Chargers. And to the MLB quickly here, out in Queens, Pete Alonso hit a 3-run walk-off homer, and the Mets stopped an 8-game losing streak, 5-2 win over the Texas Rangers, reopen a 1.5-game lead over San Francisco for the last NL wild card. Up next for the Mets, an off day today before welcoming in the Padres for a 3-game set tomorrow night. In the Bronx, Yanks unable to complete a series sweep of the Red Sox. They lose 6-4 in yesterday's finale. Boston moves within 1.5 games behind New York for the AL top wild card, and the second-place Yanks dropped to 4 games behind AL East leading Toronto with the loss. Up next for the Yanks, Carlos Rodon gets a start in tonight's series opener of a 3-game set against the Twins out in Minnesota. That's a 7:40 p.m. first pitch. That's your Sports Know, man. I'm Justin Alex, 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:51. It was interesting to see the Mets and the Jets fans who take the LIRR to get to those games saying, wait a minute, we may not be able to do this come next weekend. LIRR unionized workers threatening, at least some of them, to walk off the job come 12:01 a.m. Thursday morning. Of course, the LIRR is the way to get into the city.
It was the best way to get there, the easiest way, and it beats going to traffic.
It, cuts down a lot of the time that we need just to get comfortable in our seats at the game.
There's a lot of traffic recently, especially coming home. So we said, let's take mass transit and try that rather than sit in 3 hours of traffic.
Yeah, but that may not be an option. So the MTA says a majority of the LIRR unions, including the one representing conductors, have accepted contract offers. But some unions are holding out for more than what they were offered. So they were offered 9.5% raises over 3 years. But some of the unions want 16%. So they're saying if it's not done, if there isn't some deal in place by Thursday, they could walk off the job.
My husband uses the train every day for work, so big deal when you're using it to get back and forth to your job. So bigger things than just Met games, right?
Yeah, and there's not much way around it except for driving into work, which will, of course, be a nightmare. Or the MTA says they'll have shuttle buses that'll run from several LIRR stations to subway stations in Queens. But of course, as you might guess, they're encouraging people, if they can, to work from home. And that, as this new report, we get more information from the MTA, or from the Citizens Budget Committee, how the MTA is hemorrhaging money because of fare and toll evasion. This continues to happen. This report shows that the MTA lost out on roughly $1 billion last year.
People need to focus on this because it is not fair that most of us pay, but we're paying more because other people aren't.
Yeah, so according to the group, every minute during 2024, 330 subway fares and 710 bus fares were evaded. I mean, that's sort of every minute. They say the recent effort, though, to crack down on fare invasion could improve that figure this year.
Fare and toll evasion continue to be a massive problem, although thankfully the MTA is finally starting to turn the tide.
Now, this commission is recommending accelerating the rollout of those new fare gates and expanding the fares program. But I can tell you just from my own experience, it's unbelievable. When you go down, you feel like you're the only one who's paying the fare. WABC News Time 5:54, the deadline for filing New Jersey anchor payments. That's right around the corner now.
State officials say a new filing and validation system will help New Jersey residents receive their anchor tax rebate checks sooner rather than later. This year's payments will start being mailed Monday. Most residents had their applications auto-filed by the state after receiving a confirmation letter last month. But residents who need to change their banking info or mailing address must do so by Monday. Danny DiCrescenzo, NBC News Radio, New York.
From New Jersey, let's head over to Staten Island, where the railway fleet has new and improved subway cars. New York City Transit president says the previous cars were installed all the way back in 1973. The new R211 cars include pre-installed security cameras, more accessible seating, and a bunch of wider doorways.
50 years is the oldest fleet that we had in the entirety of New York City Transit. Tell me the last time that you've ridden in a car that's 50 years old.
And since they rolled out these rail cars, you might guess customer satisfaction has gone up just a bit. From Staten Island out to Long Island, American flags and candles stretching as far as the eye could see for a Charlie Kirk memorial over the weekend. Just thousands of people gathering by the LIR station in Seaford, chanting Kirk's name and singing patriotic songs.
Look at this. Saturday night, everyone could be doing other things, but instead we're here together. We are here to celebrate the life of the avatar of a generation. He gave motivation to so many young people all over this country.
And we go from there to this bizarre story out of New Jersey, where a nurse is filing suit against a New Jersey hospital and a doctor, claiming she was suspended without pay after criticizing a doctor for his alleged remarks about Charlie Kirk.
Lexi Coenzel is suing Englewood Health and Dr. Matthew Jung and others. The New York Post reports Coenzel claims that when the news broke of conservative activist Charlie Kirk's death, Dr. Jung said, "I hate Charlie Kirk. He had it coming. He deserved it." Coenzel says Jung made the remarks in front of 8 other nurses and a patient and reported the incident immediately to management. She also posted on Instagram. Coenzel was suspended without pay and told by her union to look for another job. Englewood Health did not want to comment, while Dr. Jung could not be reached for comment. I'm Lisa Salvati.
And we'll end this hour down the Jersey Shore in Seaside Heights, where they're trying to make the town more family-friendly. Remember, you had all those incidents on the Memorial Day weekend with the big crowds, and they kind of stopped that. Everything got better. They made the hours shorter on the boardwalk, more cops. But Seaside Heights has now been named one of the top party beaches in the U.S. This according to Hotels.com.
I don't know, well, I guess it's party, I guess. But, I mean, it's got bars and stuff, but it's not a crazy atmosphere. No, pretty family-oriented, so it's pretty good.
Now, Miami Beach claimed the top spot, followed by Waikiki Beach in Hawaii. So the fact that they made this list is a big deal. But the hotel booking site ranked beaches nationwide based on nightlife and atmosphere. Seaside Heights earned its spot thanks to part to its lively boardwalk and to the bars, rides, and games. But when you were down there over the weekend, they were asking people about the fact that Seaside Heights is a party beach. They found a lot of people who agree. It include a number of bachelorette parties over the weekend.
I just did some research, and I saw that it was a great place for a bachelorette party, and we have an Airbnb down the road, and we're ready to party.
I'm looking just to have a great time with my girls and be able just to experience like this all together.
Yeah, so then, and others said, well, they're happy about this, especially some of the bar owners.
Seaside's been a couple of years, but after Sandy and everything, we've been building back, and I feel like people have fun here, so it makes sense.
Thanks for listening to the News Hour with Noam Laden. You can hear the News Hour with Noam Laden weekday mornings at 5 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?